Hello guys, welcome back to another session on Azure Developer Community. And today we have with us our speaker Sonal ma'am, who is going to teach us about introduction to SQL and how to integrate it with Azure. And I hope it's going to be a very interactive and learning session, and you all guys are going to learn new technologies. So let's begin. And over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for the warm introduction and yeah, let's begin into the session. So, hey everyone, welcome to the session on Introduction to Azure and let me introduce myself. Hey everyone, I'm Sonal Jain. I'm working currently as a project coordinator at OpenCo community and also a Gold Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador. You can find me anywhere with tag Sonal and 067. So, yeah. So, why we're going to talk about Introduction to Azure, Introduction to SQL on Azure. So, understanding why we are going to talk about it, as we are seeing that in today's world, we are too much driven by data. Is happening and increasing in our area. That massive amount of data is having and having so much potential in today's day. And talking about the storage of the data, we are storing it in on premises, on the cloud, or in the edge of the some network. And developers are consistently building those existing and making the intelligent and immersive applications to just save that data and just use it with the constraints which are there with the and try to make an impact and establish the experiences. uh, Now talking about the limitations which they need to face are the incompatible platforms, inadequate data security of the resources or the security, then the price performance barriers which can be there. And one of the most important things that we cannot forget is that modernization, that we need to update it very frequently as new versions are coming up. And we are going to also talk about why Azure is more better than on-premises SQL Server and how we can leverage Azure SQL Server technology and make our database applications more into it. So yeah, going to next slide, that what is a SQL database and trying to understand all the terminologies which are there. So starting with SQL database. So we use the SQL database to manage the query and ensure that the structure of the data which we are storing in the database is one of the primary reasons to do so. And we are managing the query, we are running the structure, and we are storing the structure in a SQL database. And it's also called the relational database, which we are going to talk about. That, for example, if we having an entity that the person and it has three values like the first name, last name, and the age, and we can put on the table and uh, and incorporate those values into the columns, and then we can add more data into that table. And then if we create one more table of some more data fields like the address of the person and include the ID of also the thing, and try to establish the relationship between those two tables, then we can say that it is a relational database. And but it is much more, the data relational database are much more than rows and columns which are there. It's more about defining a table and also giving them constraints. And Azure makes sure that when we're applying those constraints, it is maintaining the data security, which is beautifully done by Azure, be done by SQL. So relational database does not end here. It has multiple tables. So we have the user table, and we would like to just make it a relational table with the address table. Then we can combine it using the primary key, as you know, as you might know about. If you are familiar with SQL, you might know about that thing, that if we are required to make a connection, that we need to do something with the primary and secondary key, and then we can just establish a relationship between them and do the queries and perform the whatever task we needed to do. And with all these things, Azure and SQL takes care that the relation and the quality remains intact. Now talking about why we are needing to use a relational database. As Azure, as SQL is also a relational database, so talking about what we can do with relational database. So if we are having a structure, if we are having a structured data, we can maintain it using the schemas which are there, the constraints which are there, relationships which are there. And if we are having a very rich query, uh, uh, things which we are needed to do much more computation, or we are needed to extract some data from the table, then it's very much efficient and a good choice to use the SQL structured thing and relational database. Nextly, talking about Azure. So Azure has a bunch of the ecosystem. So starting with Azure account and subscription. So as you can know that part of it, they are having various parts of Azure SQL, parts of Azure, but those are independent, but they are integrated in some or the other way. Starting with the Azure account and subscription. So if we are needed to do anything and use any services of Azure, we are needed to just have an account with subscription so that we can just create, deploy, and do whatever stuff we are ready to do with Azure SQL or any other services which are there. Next, we're talking about the Azure portal, which is there. That is a user interface which we can start with a browser. It can be a phone app or a Windows app, which we can do to interact with the services which Azure provides. Next, we're talking about the Azure Marketplace. So it is one of the way we can just go and choose over whatever services Azure provides and find out and pick from those services which we want to take off. So now, nextly is Azure APIs and CLIs. As a programmer, we are very much fond of using the command line interface and stuff. So Azure also provides those functionality to use different CLI tools and APIs to interact with Azure resources and command line interface such as the Azure CLI and PowerShell. Nextly is the Azure Resource Manager. It is a very important part of the infrastructure of Azure, and it's a powerful resource that developers use of Azure SQL, which is required to deploy things and manage it with the entire Azure infrastructure. Nextly, talking about the Azure Monitor. So, as you can by name, it is seen that it is a monitoring system of the Azure, and it takes the snap of the monitoring system to show various different things, like you can say the matrices or the different audit logs which are there. Nextly, Azure region and data centers. So if you're deploying an Azure SQL database or something into the center, then if you're deploying it anywhere in the world, that then Microsoft also deploys it somewhere, and those data centers where we deploy is known as regions. So nextly is Microsoft Azure SLA compliance and trust. As we are knowing that we use any product with because we are having trust on that product. So Microsoft is providing an infrastructure that gives us the trust, as it is providing the security policy and compliance with the lot of service level agreement which is there, and we can just trust on them, rely on them, and use their services and pay as we go with them. And these resources are up and running, and they ensure that they are available as much as possible. So that's all for the overall ecosystem of the Azure things. Next, we're talking about Azure SQL and Azure SQL databases. Now let's understand these terminologies as well. So Azure SQL is the term which is used to represent the family of the SQL which is in the cloud. It is a family which it is a family of managed, secure, and intelligent products which are there in the SQL Server database engine. So it is the main engine which ensures the creation and everything of the Azure SQL in the Azure cloud. Nextly, talking about Azure SQL Database, which is the general purpose relational database and service, which is based on the latest version of Microsoft SQL Server database engine. So when we are creating an SQL instance in a cloud, then we are actually creating two things. Firstly, is the SQL Server database, which is the database of which we are creating, and nextly is the SQL database server, which is a logical unit, and it is a central administration which manages the single or the pool of databases which are there, and it has various functions like the Firebase rules, the auditing rules, the detection policies, and the server can have one or multiple databases inside it. Now Azure SQL is based upon the familiar SQL Server engine. So if we want to integrate, we can do it with the ease and continue to use the tools and the languages, the resources which are available, and uh, we can just do it with very much ease. Nextly, we have talked about that what it is all about. Now we can see that what all features it is providing to us. So the first feature which is providing to us is fully managed and always up to date. As a developer, we are needed to just do much of the deployment and the updating things. So Azure provides us with all the updates which the Azure has. So we need to spend more time innovating and less time into updating or backing up our databases. So Azure is the only cloud that provides the evergreen SQL with that automatically applies all the latest updates which are there and the patches which are up to date, and thus eliminating all of our endless hustle which we need to put on updating the things, and it also does the complex tasks like performance tuning, high availability, and disaster recovery and backups, which are the most important things. Nextly, second point is that protect your data with built-in intelligent security. It's very much important that if you're keeping our data somewhere, then it must be protected and had a really good security, because in this time it can pose to lot of threats, and but thanks to Azure, that it provides intelligent advanced threat detection and also some vulnerability alerts that we can just have and get to know that our data is having some alerts and the stuff like that. And it also has the built-in security controls which they manage through authentication, end key, and key management. We can also take advantage of the coverage of the cloud-based services which they provide. Nextly, talking about the business motivations that businesses are mostly using, and we need to see some parameters in order to understand that whether it is feasible or not. So, talking about the cost of the business, if it's there, so both we have two technologies which services which Azure provides, like the PaaS and as, which is the platform as a service and infrastructure as a service. So, both the services which they provide is have very less uh, have very less cost, and they provide very much additional services, and we need to see that how much time and resources we need to invest and how we are going to use that. For example, if we are using the as option, in which we need to put an additional time and resources to manage our database, while if we are using platform as a service, then we are free from the very much designing and infrastructure handling thing, and we are needed to do some kind of the stuffs. Also in as there is a feature that we can put off and shut down the resources which are not we are using, while in PaaS the system is not there, so we can just think upon that what features which we like to have in our system and what we are going to do with that. Also, if we can see one more parameter, that administration. For example, if my company is not having that much administrative thing, and I need to have some reliable thing that they can manage my administration thing, then I can just go ahead with PaaS, as it reduces my time to manage and administer those databases, and it also limits the range of the customization which I can do with my administration task, and I can just run and perform those. Next is the service level agreement, that it is really important that they're ensuring us a very high level service level agreement. That is for PaaS, we have 99.99% service level agreement, and for infrastructure as a service, we have 99.95% of service level agreement, which ensures us that we are having a very high availability solution with us, and we can just rely upon them. And now it's we can think that it is now the time to move to Azure, as we can have a very much disastrous thing that our data might be uh, very much uh, prone to a disaster or something like that. And also, it's easy to migrate our databases to from an on-premises server to the cloud. So yeah, we can go ahead and do that stuff. So nextly talking about the services which Azure provides, as we have talked about earlier as well, that infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. So in infrastructure as a service, we have the type that it is providing is as SQL Server on Azure virtual machine. As we have said that in infrastructure as a service, we are going to do so much administrative work and we can customize it in much way that we want. So what we can do in this is that uh, a SQL Server which is installed and hosted in the cloud, we can just run that on Azure, and also that is known as the infrastructure as a service, and it is good that we can move and migrate our on-premises SQL Server databases to the cloud without any much changes to the database which we have, and the versions which are there on the SQL Server are updated and installed and keep in sync with whatever is updation is there. Nextly is that also it benefits to a lot that it is less from migrations and applications requiring very high level operating system access, and it is very much good for lift and shift ready for existing applications which require that. For example, if fast migration to the cloud is required with minimal charges, so I can just go ahead and use this service as it is providing me full administrative control over my instance, and also we are having an underlining operating system migration for our application to Azure. It also has we have also full control to the database engine which we are doing. We can maintain so much things like the maintenance or the patching thing. We can just change the recovery model to simple or backlog. We can pause and start these services. We can customize our database engine which is there, so it adds to a lot of things and customizations and a lot of work as well. So we can also do rapid development, and if we don't want to buy the on-premises SQL Server hardware, then we can just move to cloud and use their hardware services, and which is own hosted and deployed by Microsoft itself. So we can just rely upon them and their services and their hardware as well. So it is having a policy that we can pay as we go onto the SQL Server, and we can just use their services and do our stuff. It is very much optimized for migrating our applications to Azure and extending our on-premise application as well. And we can also do a hybrid deployments as well, that we can keep something into our on-premises and some important applications or data which is there, we can push it to Azure as well. In addition to this, we can also do traditional SQL Server applications, and we are having a full right over whatever things we are going to choose and select and make our applications in whatever way we want. And it's a perfect choice for an organization if they are having the IT resources to maintain those virtual machines which are there in the cloud, and it is having a capability of highly customizable system which we can just address and see that if we really require those things or not, and then select those. Now secondly we have is platform as a service, which is and the first one is a SQL Server managed instance. So in this SQL Server managed instance, we are going to abstract one more layer to it, and so here Azure is going to manage the infrastructure and the operating system, and we are going to responsible to manage the whole server which is we have, and it is mostly good for the system for if we want to migrate it to the cloud, and it is having a lot of systems and user database with shared resources that is also lift and shift ready. So it is best for the new applications, or if we are having our on-premises applications which we want to have hosted onto the cloud with minimal charges, and it is similar to the Microsoft SQL Server database engine, which offers the shared resources which are there with the additional features which are there. And it also supports the database migration from on-premises with minimal charges to the cloud, as we have talked about in SQL Server on Azure virtual machines. And this Azure SQL Managed instance has all the features of PaaS with were previously available in SQL Server on virtual machines on Azure, and it is a virtual network which has 100% compatibility with the on-premises SQL Server, and it provides full SQL Server access and feature compatibility for migrating servers to Azure. Now, the next one we have is that Azure SQL database. And in this, what we are going to do is that we are going to abstract one more layer to it, and Azure is now going to manage the operating system, the infrastructure, the SQL Server, and we are having just the database that is up and running. So it is a relational database as a service which is hosted in the Azure and which is providing us the platform as a service as we are using their platform. So it is platform as a service thing which we are using. Nextly, it is best for the cloud applications which are there, and we would like to have with the least latest stable SQL features with the time constraints which are there in the development and marketing. And it is based on the enterprise edition of the SQL Server, and it has two deployment options which are there on it, and which is built on the standardized hardware and software that is owned, maintained, and hosted by Microsoft itself. And in this also, it has features of pay as you go to scale up or do use greater power with no interruption, and it has various built-in features and functionality that requires extensive configuration, and either it is on premises or on virtual machines. So it has various features and that are not available in SQL Server, but it has various features like high availability, intelligence, and management. Nextly, we have various deployment models which are there in Azure SQL database, like the single database, elastic pool, and managed instance. So in single database, what we do is that we uh, as a single database with its own set of resources, we use a logical SQL Server. It is very much similar to the contained database in SQL Server. It is very much optimized for modern applications which are there, and hyperscale and serverless options are also available, which are really crucial, and it's essential when we do uh, that scaling up things. Nextly, Elastic Pool, it is a very dynamic option, and it's really great that it has having a collection of databases with shared kind of resources. And in this, if we are moving on to the elastic pool, we can think it like something that if we are having the resources in the elastic pool, then if it is it then if we have the varying kind of data, for example, if my company is having very least number of users in the starting part of the day, while in the ending part I have more users, then I can just scale up my server to so much that extent that users can feel no difficulty in using my services. So it is providing a very good advantage over it. And helps multiple also it helps multiple single databases that would share various resources which are there in various scenarios. Next, we're talking about the managed instances which are there. So it has single database which we move to cloud, and when we want to get rid of some of the features, we make it just cloud ready, and it has all the capabilities of the SQL Server, and we want to manage it, but we want to manage it ourselves. And then, but as we are having so much customization and managed instances, it is more pricey than both of the two options, like the single deployment model and elastic model. So we would like to just check and make sure that does we require that feature or not, so that and we need to see that do we really require this thing or not. So if there are options like we need to lift or shift something, or these features are not there on any other platform, on any other features, and which is only available on this managed instance, then only it is advised and recommended to use this system. Otherwise it would just be a bit more pricey, and yeah. And always we can just design our own system and do this stuff. Now, Elastic Pool is such a great tool which we have, and it is also recommended to use it, because what we can do in this, that if we are having an uneven use during the day, and we can upscale and downscale our database or our instances accordingly, and thus we are saving a lot of our cost and resources as well. So now we are going to talk about the purchase model. So there are various purchase models in which accordingly they take the charge the money from us. So yeah, talking about the purchase models which they have is that firstly is a database transaction unit, that is DTU, which is the Microsoft own unit of the performance, which is in the middle of vCore's memory IOPS and other matrices which are available, and it is really hard to estimate it this way. The second one is the virtual core, that is also called vCore based purchasing model, which is recently Microsoft has used, and we are basically buy virtual cores, which is actually recommended to buy it, and it's also easier to estimate that thing. So if we are moving from on-premises to cloud, we are aware that how much virtual cores we needed, and accordingly we can just take those virtual cores from the cloud and use it accordingly. And third one we have it as serverless model virtual cores, which is also based on the virtual core based model. So the main difference between the DTU and the virtual core model is that if we scale the storage in the DTU, then the computation would also be scaled to that extent. For example, if we are doing twice the computation, then also the storage would be twice, which is not at all an ideal thing to do. That if we are not using that much thing, but we are getting that much thing to use, so it is making a lot of resources, which is wasting a lot of resources. But we have a feature in vCore model that we can actually, which is actually independent of the compute and storage. So what I'm trying to say is that we can just select anything. For example, we can select any computation and any storage, and can use and deploy our model accordingly. For example, if I require 5 GB of RAM and only 5 cores of the vCore, then I can do that stuff in vCore model. Or I can just select any number of the storage and computation and use it accordingly. So it is very much ideal situation, as I can have very small storage and a powerful machine, or vice versa. That is very powerful, very high storage and the low powerful machine. So we can just use it, and it's really ideal, and we can, it is very much beneficial. Nextly, it is a purchasing model. We can also take hybrid benefit of it if we have SQL Server licenses, and we can do that with and make it cloud ready. So, as we have talked about why we are and why we would like why we must do uh, and why must shift to cloud, we can just see the graph here, that the cost versus the administration graph is there. So if you're using the SQL server on the physical premises or the on premises, then there is a really high dedicated cost, and you're needed to manage really high administration for that. But if you are using a virtual in that place, if you're using a virtual server, SQL Server Private Cloud, then the cost and the administration is reduced. Nextly, if you're using an IaaS server or SQL Server in virtual machine, and you can see the cost and uh, administration is more lowered down. But when we see the platform as a service and software as a service, it has really minimal cost and low administration. So it is according to the needs of the organization or the businesses which are there, and they can use it and accordingly to their own businesses. Also, if SQL Server has various nodes on running on the PaaS or SaaS, we can say. So we can have multiple options and service tiers with each options. And the key thing to ask is that what we need to choose, either PaaS or infrastructure as a service, and whether we want to manage a database or not, take backups or not, or delegate those stuffs or not. So yeah, we can just move to the Azure SQL walkthrough, and yeah, we can just create and see how we can just create the SQL Server. So here you can see it is the Azure portal. I will just drop down the link in the chat. Organizers. Okay, so here you can see the Azure services which are there. Here we can create the resources. It is Azure Cosmos DB, static websites we can create subscriptions. And if you hover onto it, you can see the description and create is appearing. Nextly, you have resources. If you are revisiting the Azure website portal first time, then you won't see any resources here. And then you have navigate to subscriptions, resource group, and all the resources. And now the very important tool that Microsoft Learn and the technical documentation. So if you want to learn anything regarding the Azure services, then you can just head over to the technical documentation which is there, and also learn in Microsoft Learn. I would just drop down the link in the chats as well. So in Microsoft Learn, you can just have various learning paths which are there, and just go ahead and complete those, and you will be uh, very much see that you are able to grasp most of the concepts. And technical documentation is all about reading those blogs which are provided. So yeah, we can create a resource as we are going to talk about the SQL database. So here you can see the various categories which are there, and here if you would like to explore more, then you can see and go ahead. And here I am like to create the SQL database which is there. So I can just click on the create, and if I would like to read some docs or do some Microsoft Learn, then I can just go ahead and check these links out. So for click creating this, I will just create on create. So I am having a subscription of Visual Studio Enterprise subscription. So I'm going to choose that. I have also selected the resource group. If you don't have any resource group, then you can just click this up and create a resource of yours. And here I've selected my Microsoft resource. Here I can provide the name of. So here I can just provide the database name we have. I can provide any name. So, but make sure that it must be unique. So yeah, you can just see ahead and go. And here I have the server. If you don't have the server, then you can just create here new. You can just add a server name, location, authentication method, and provide the login and password as well. Here I need to just log in quickly. So let me log in first. So here just needed to enter the login and the password which you are setting it up for the first time. And I've entered those things. Okay, I'm not. Okay, so I'm not creating the SQL database right now, not the server right now. So I've already created the server, and here I'm getting an option to whether I would like to use the elastic pool or not. That whether I would like uh, to have a control over scaling up and downscaling my server. So I don't want to do. So I'm selecting no. So here you can see the compute and storage as we have seen in the purchasing model that. Here we can configure that and select our. So here is the service tier. It is general purpose. Here I'm using the vCore based purchasing, as I am like to just use computation and storage differently and not the DTU model where I would be getting only one option to select the data, and accordingly the computation would be there. So we can just also use the other options, which is really powerful. That hyperscale is a really powerful and good option to use. It is general purpose. I'm going ahead with that. We have now uh, this is a hardware configuration which my I'm creating of the virtual machine which I'm having, which is of 408 GB, 4 GB TB, and here it is the cost which is taking, and maximum cores it has of 80 cores it has. You can get more details. You can just select any number of key cores which you would like to have. You select the minimum of it. Here the database data size, max size, and min size we can see and select it. And I don't want to make database redundant, so I'm selecting no option. And I can just move ahead with the networking thing. I would allow. Okay, it's not giving me option, so yeah. Next is the current client's IP address. I would like to do yes for now. Now, private endpoints, if you like to do any endpoints like private IP address, then you can just add your endpoints here and just go ahead with that. I'm just going ahead with network security. I don't want to start the Microsoft Defender for SQL right now, and I don't like to change any other options as well. So here I'm not using an existing data, but creating a sample data to populate new database. So I'm selecting the sample here. Next is about the tags. I don't want to create any one, so I will just review and create. Here I can see the estimated cost, which is there. So it is about 16,000, and I can just click on create. This would create my SQL database. So yeah, I can just go ahead and. So by the time if we have any questions or anything, then we can just take up those as well. Otherwise, I can just. Deployment is still in progress. We can just wait till then. So yeah, it's still being in the deployment progress. We can just wait till then, and if we have any questions, then we can take up those. And yeah, great to see you up here. Great here. We can just wait for a few moments as it would just deploy the SQL database. By the time we can just explore more of the Azure database which is there. Okay, Varun, is my voice lagging? Okay, the deployment is now successful. I can just go ahead and do creation of things. So yeah, so here's the test 07 which we have created. You can just see the activity logs which are there, which we've talked about. The tags I have not added any one. Power BI, and here we have various options which we can go ahead and do the steps which we are going to do. Okay, we can just move ahead to the query editor which is there. We can just start with the queries. So here my login is there, and I'm now adding the password which we have set, which I have set off before on before only. Okay, it's incorrect. Okay, I need to make it IP access. Okay, so one more thing I need to do before doing this. I need to update the server file rules, otherwise I won't be able to access these things. So yeah, I need to just provide these things. So here I can see whatever queries I want to run. So yeah, I would just paste the query which I have from the blog of Microsoft Docs, and here I can just click on run. So here you can see I selected the top item from PC dot name and PC dot name as product name category name. From PC and PN I've added a condition that PC dot product category is equal to the PC dot product category ID. So here I'm getting a lot of results. You can see the category name and the product name which are listed. So yeah, we have successfully run the query and created the resources as well. So what if I want to delete all my resources and clean up it? So I would just go ahead to my Microsoft resource. So here I have created this admin. So it is my server which I've created right now. So what if I want to delete and do this stuff? So I can just select it and delete whatever resources which I would like to delete. So if anyone have any questions, then we can take up those. And by this option we can delete resource group, and that would be deleted. And if we want to do any more actions, then we can just go ahead to the test 067, which is our database, and provide more operations and query which are there. So it is the query editor which we can where we can do. Here we can select any of the queries and do the stuff which are there. So here we have the tables option. Here you can see the lot of tables are there, sales, LT, and other stuffs. Here we can see the views and the stored procedures which are there. Here we can run the query, cancel it, save it, export it, and also we can show it editor and save it as well. Here results would be there and messages would be also there. So yeah, this is it. So I guess this is it which I would like to cover in today's session. So if anyone have any doubts, then we can take up those. Varun, are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here only. And I
Yeah.
think Abhay Gupta is saying, ma'am, can you please explain marketplace once again?
Yeah, sure. Okay, sorry for the lag. I think I was mute. So, like marketplace is a place where you can go and see the products and services which are available, and then can pick and buy them. So I can also show the marketplace which is available in Azure. So, so this is a marketplace which is available in Azure. So you can see the services which are there, like this one. So here I can create my own services. Here I can see the plans which are available, what kind of things, and it is based more on the professional level. As you can see, it is of Azure managed services professional. Here I can see the usage, how I can do and other stuff. Here I can see the reviews of it as well. So this is, I think, the marketplace. You can explore more about it, and you can create private marketplace as well. And here are the stubs which you can see, and you can create your own as well. So here you can see that I have created this, clicked on that Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So it is giving me Red Hat Enterprise Linux virtual machine. So I hope I'm able to answer that question of making explain marketplace.
Yes, ma'am. And we have another doubt. He's asking that, ma'am, query is basically for server people or are using that or just pre-answered queries?
So query is basically the statement. For example, if we are having a table and we want to get some amount of data. For example, if I'm having a table with first name, last name, age, and gender, in which I have females and males, and I would like to derive data of those people who are males or females. For example, I'm considering to take people who are females. So I would write such a query that I would get data of people who are females. So what is the question? Can I get? So query is basically that thing, and it is not for server people or something like that. What we are trying to do here is that we are trying to run those queries in cloud. So that is not for server people, I guess. And it is, I'm not able to understand that pre-answered queries thing, but can you just elaborate a more or ask it in a different way?
Ma'am, he's asking difference between vCore and serverless model vCore.
Okay. Yeah, I'm explaining. So it is basically vCore includes the, so serverless is one second, I'm getting. So vCore is unit per price of time which is there, which is lower than the serverless, and database. Okay, so vCore is basically the unit price per time of unit which we are using, and serverless is basically we are making it serverless and not adding any server to it. So I hope I'm able to answer that question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay,
you're
thank you
able
so much.
to answer, and ma'am, the audience is quite appraising the session, like they are saying this session is interesting and also all the doubts are cleared. So thank you very much, ma'am, for coming here, taking out your time and delivering such a wonderful session for all of us. And we surely are expecting you to see you again for with another topic. And also, I'd like to thank all the audience for coming here and being so patient. One announcement for you all that I'm sharing the Discord server link of Azure Developer Community. You all must be able to see it on the screen as well. I'd request you to please join the Discord server for any other assistance if you want or community support. And also, every Friday, we are conducting quizzes where the winners are getting swags from Microsoft and many more things. You guys can just join for the community support and any kind of collaborations or anything you want. We'll provide you with the resources. And you know, the best part of being in community is you are able to interact with lot many people and you are able to learn many things from other persons as well and able to upskill your knowledges. So, ma'am, we have comments for you. Thank you so much, and thank you for so much for this interesting session.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, attendees, for patiently listening, and thank you so much, Varun, for hosting it very well. Yeah,
Yeah,
see you
pleasure's all
again.
mine. So, Guys, thank you very much. So, till next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and happy learning. See you
Yeah.
for
Bye,
the next
everyone.
event. Bye. Bye.